What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Other Side of the Firewall podcast, where we go over the latest in cybersecurity news, as well as highlight those movers and shakers and glass ceiling breakers, those people of color who made it to the other side of the firewall. My name is Ryan Williams, and as always, I'm joined by Shannon Times
What's up? What's up?
and LeVon Maynard.
What up?
All right, so it's been kind of a crazy week. We're doing a recap of all of the Colonial Pipeline stuff. So if you tune into the last episode, we kind of break down the theories and what we believe to have happened from the information we currently have, as well as we do some foreshadowing throughout the week. So today we're going to talk about the executive order. And then later on in the week, we're going to have a discussion about the ransom being paid. And as always, on Friday, we're going to have that weekly rundown where we talk about what we've been watching and listening, all that non-cybersecurity type stuff. But with that being said, I give it to you, Shannon.
All right. So this article is from the lawfareblog.com, and it's written by two people, actually, Robert Chesney and Trey Hare. And the title of it is Everything You Need to Know About the New Executive Order on Cybersecurity. So this was Wednesday morning, actually. The Biden administration had released an executive order on improving the nation's cybersecurity. So it's one of those things where you see executive order and you're like, oh, it's not really going to do much, but there's a little bit of teeth to this, right? Now, with this out there, I will say this executive order really only affects, your civil service agencies, your government agencies, the .govs and a little bit of the .mils. And I actually looked into this executive order, and there's 11 sections to it, right? And there's a lot of stuff that it goes into and a lot of things that I think we've been needing for a long time, right? Now, when this was released, it would lead you to believe, oh, it's because of the Colonial Pipeline stuff. That is the reason this got released. But you gotta think back to some of the things that have been happening, within the past year that we've been talking about, go all the way back, about 7 months or so. And you'll see we've been talking about some of these things that this actually addresses and to where the federal government has been a target of, right? So the president doing this executive order on, like I said, Wednesday, he's making it known that cybersecurity is a priority, right? And it's one of those things that we talk about even on this program where we're like, we need to make this a priority. We need people to be more serious. I mean, we've seen money get thrown at it. We've seen up to $1 billion. They're putting people in different positions. Even for this one, they're standing up a position that's the NCD, I think is what it is. Is it National Cyber Director? I gotta find it again. But they have a person in line for this already. Mr. Chris Inglis, Inglis, is gonna be the head of that department there. And it's one of those things where we need to take this more serious. And I think we are actually starting to get to that point, because when you start to think about it and how we are as a nation, you think about Department of Defense and things of that, and traditionally you think, bombs, bullets, airplanes, tanks, right? That's not necessarily where our battles are being fought now, right? It's in the cyber domain with IT, where things are getting a lot, I don't want to say a lot worse for us, but it's getting a little more treacherous, where countries that may be coming after us, this is the way in, this is what they're doing, right? And with the different sections, like I said, there's 11 sections in this, but really 2 through 9, to sum it up, are the ones where it's got some teeth to it, to where it's like, this is what we're going to do. And like I said, mostly it affects, your .gov organizations, but .mil does fall into this a little bit as well. And they give a little bit of leeway on how the NCD director, the National Cyber Director, can implement that and kind of put it out there for everybody to take action on. But some of the highlights of it, right, is enhancing the software supply chain security, actually reporting things to the FBI and other government agencies when things happen, and being in coordination, right? Because you see this a lot where you'll have, the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing in the federal government. They're kind of, it would do them better to act together, and address some of these things. That doesn't exactly happen. And that's one of the things specifically addressed in this executive order, to where it's like, hey, you need to report immediately, and you need to make sure you are working in concert, to make sure that we can come up with a way forward, or we can come up with some type of after action report to know how to address this in the future, what to do to recover from certain incidents, how to prevent the incidents from happening. But this is one of those things of, you love to see it. Granted, it's not a law; it's an executive order, but you got to start somewhere. You know what I mean? So, LeVon, what's your thoughts on this?
I think it's an excellent initiative. I mean, obviously, cybersecurity is such a hot thing right now, especially with the last year with the COVID thing, and then everybody's working from home and all this kind of stuff, all these different ransomware. Even outside of just the pipeline that just went down. I mean, we've had all kinds of big people be getting hit by these ransomware attacks. But yeah, I was kind of. I mean, this thing is like definitely very detailed. This article has a lot of the information from the executive order. And I think one thing that stood out to me was a section in here. They're talking about in section 3. They said getting the government's own house in order, aka cloud, more cloud, and don't trust anybody. So they're talking about a lot of the modernization nowadays is pushed towards like the cloud, which I think is great. I mean, cloud has a lot of power as far as like modernizing things and making things more accessible and easier and function. A lot of automation and you kind of take some of the load off of like the local like data center. You have to build out your own data center and support things like that. But um, talking about that, uh, kind of modernizing it. There's the FedRAMP, which is the federal government's main security authorization program for cloud services. Talking about modernizing that program to make sure that they keep up with all the latest and greatest capabilities of the cloud. It took some of the language right out of the cloud service provider playbook, which is more emphasized on it puts emphasis on like more automated, more rapid, and less duplicative. Dup, dup, duplicative, duplicative. I can't say it. Yeah,
Duplicative.
duplicative. That's right. Reviews of new cloud services. So yeah, so it's like essentially they're kind of putting a lot of emphasis on like revamping some of their processes, and they even talk about the zero trust architecture, where pretty much everything you don't trust anything on your network, even if it's like it's inside your network. You don't trust it right away. You have to give it some sort of authentication piece or some sort of validation that it's actually authorized and that's still clean, that it hasn't been affected. Just like you can imagine if somebody was on their machine and then they download some malware from the web, and then the machine gets compromised. If they don't have a proper mechanism in place to kind of scan it and make sure that it's still clean, then it is going to be on the network doing whatever it wants. Especially if it's like an important it could be like a system that some administrator has access to, that has administrator accounts on it, that they can kind of like daisy chain, or they can hop between different devices on the network. But I think this is overall, I think this is pretty great. I mean, it's great that the new administration is actually focused on cybersecurity, that they're putting a lot of effort forward to make sure we secure our infrastructure. And like you mentioned, I think there's like $1 billion and $1 billion more that they're trying to invest in cybersecurity. And you got to imagine, as we've seen just in like the last week here, how much this affected the U.S. And you can imagine if other things, other pipelines, um, other main, like very very essential services get compromised by cyber incidents, that how much that's going to affect us as a country. You can imagine some nuclear power plants and water supply stations, and you name it. Even like government, if a military base gets compromised, and all these other big important resources and services that we rely on get compromised. So putting, we definitely have to put, you know, as much, I don't know, we have to invest as much money or effort into this area as we do of any other, national security. As much as we put in the military or any kind of other police force, or, whatever you want to think of, anything that we kind of rely on. I think cybersecurity has to be relied on just as much. But
Yeah,
what you think?
this is the new attack terrain. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like
Hmm.
like I said, it's I know when you think about this, people usually think bombs, bullets, and things of that nature when they think of
Right.
department stores and things of that. But like this is the new terrain. This is where our attacks are being, like, people would be floored. I'm not going to put the numbers out there, but people would be floored if they knew how many attacks are thwarted every day. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Just
Right.
through things that need to be done.
Yeah, that's a good point. And even, I play around with stuff in the cloud, and I put like maybe a virtual machine in the cloud, and as a public, I make it with a public IP just to test some things out. And as soon as I put it out there, you look at the logs, you can see all kinds of attacks hitting it like almost instantly. As soon as I put it out there as a public IP and it's accessible, it's like you can see the logs. You see people putting in uh, John Smith. John Smith username, admin, and then put some random password, whatever they do, and you see all these access denied, some random like admin account names that just pop up in the security log. So it's it's just one of those things like you just got to be aware that that's a big thing nowadays, that people are trying to get into your stuff. People are trying to get into these high profile government systems, so we got to do our best to make sure that doesn't happen. But do you have some thoughts on it as well, Brian?
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, when I saw the executive order, I was like, how much power does it really have? But the article does state that these things are broad, and they're meant to align the executive branch with what they want to do. Um, but in it, I mean, it did, like you said, it did have some good stuff. Like when it comes down to just getting our own house in order, uh, and it even talks about IoT devices. It talks about creating more unified incident response playbook. And we have to remember that a lot of the frameworks that we currently have did come from the government. When it comes to like the FISMA rules, as well as PCI DSS for credit cards, things of that nature, they usually come out of the government's kind of like brainstorming session, like, hey, how do we protect this? Because it could eventually affect national security. And then the private sector adopts it and then, kind of makes it their own. So I think it's all good. When I was flipping through the article, and it may be actually in the executive order, but I think the article would have captured it. It doesn't really talk about ransom and paying it, not paying it. So I think that's something that will come in the future. It does say that a lot of this stuff has to be fleshed out by Congress. That's the branch that actually does make the rules, right? Because in other countries, like I know, or I believe I've seen where the UK does not allow private companies to pay ransom. So you wouldn't have the colonial pipeline situation where they paid the 5 mil. They would be disincentivized to paying because they would know that the company cannot pay. It would be against federal law. And then how do you stop them from paying? I would assume it would be some kind of fines or some kind of regulatory actions would be taken on the private company if they were to pay the ransom. So that's what I want to see. That's the big part. Like we discussed in yesterday's episode where we talked about just better continuity plan, better disaster recovery plans, because I think that would have helped out Colonial Pipeline a lot. But in this case, I think it would help out all the companies if you made it illegal for them to pay ransom, because then you wouldn't have 50 million, $25 million ransoms being paid out. It would just disincentivize the attackers. Again, it will put more pressure on the company to have a better plan, because if you cannot pay, then you need to have plans to get back up and running as quickly as possible. And then I think I found in another article exactly what system was attacked, and we'll talk about that in tomorrow's episode. So I think that they're starting to leak what actually did happen and why these systems were brought down. And it wasn't necessarily the operational side of Colonial Pipeline that was attacked, actually, but the two sides may have been tied to one another. But to go back to this, I think too much legislation is bad, right? We never want the government to step in too far, but the cyber domain is such the wild, wild west. Someone has to build a framework, and that's probably going to come from the federal government in some regard, and then everybody will adopt what they need to adopt to their private companies. Because everybody's doing everything, then no one's doing anything. You know what I mean? Like, right. And you're going to continue to get attacked. And ransom it's like with the world knowing that they paid, there's going to be another ransomware attack. It's going to happen because they're like, oh, they got 5 mil. We can cash in on this as well. We can tag so and so, and then those tools that they used are out there, even though the ransomware gang may be disbanded for now. Their tools are still out there. So
what I'll say is like what I was kind of like you, like with the executive order thing. Before I actually looked at the executive order and looked at the 11 sections, it's over 8,000 words or something like that is what the article says. And I looked at it, I expected to see, like maybe a paragraph, per section or whatever. It's got some stuff in there. I'm like, okay, they're I think they really are taking it a little more serious than what the lip service has been given in the past, right? Because like over the time that we've been in or working for the military, like how much have we heard cybersecurity is a priority, and it still hasn't been, right? So yeah, if you actually look at it, the White House document that they put out there, I'm like, man, there's a lot of stuff in here. It's
Yeah.
pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see
And
that
that
they
shows you they've been
mentioned.
working on it for a while, as opposed to it wasn't a knee-jerk reaction of this week. They didn't churn out 8,000 words.
Right.
But go ahead,
That's
LeVon. I'm
true.
sorry.
Oh no, that's yeah. You had it covered. I was gonna say yeah. It's just I just saw a couple words in there. They didn't mention multi-factor authentication. I know that's one of
They
your
did. It's
your
section
crutches.
3.
Yeah.
Section 3, they put it out there. No, that's good. That's good.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
saved
I
my
know.
butt. It saved my butt. I just wanted to be even quicker. But I guess then the attacker would have a quicker route to get to my stuff. So
That's right.
there's that.
No, that's good though. No, I think you're exactly right though. It's I think the big thing is on the actual people get affected by ransomware and they're paying the money. I think that's probably like the biggest thing I like to see addressed going forward.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that will come out pretty soon. Because I don't know if you guys saw it. I was watching the news repeats. They show the yesterday's news in the morning time here. Uh, and they asked the president up front, like, did you know that Colonial Pipeline paid the ransom? And he was like, I have nothing to say about that. And then he walked away.
I
that,
did
that's
see
what
that.
that's what ended the press conference. I
Oh
was like,
damn.
oh. So I think that they were taken by surprise. But again, everything in we don't have the timeline yet. So I think in real time, things were moving so fast. It was like, oh no, they attacked such system. Let's shut them all down. That was a knee jerk reaction. But you gotta do what you gotta do.
Hmm.
And then from there, it was like we gotta come up all back up. And it was like this is taking too long. And it was like call the FBI. And while they're doing that, it was like pay the money. I think it was several people making several different decisions all at one time. But again, if you had I keep going back to the business continuity and disaster recovery plans. Like if you had thought about this, brainstorm this in the past that this could potentially happen to you, what do we do when we have to break glass and hit the button? Like you have to exercise those things. You need somebody experienced on your team, and then maybe you have to like Colonial Pipeline could have had several on premises CISOs if they wanted to. They had that type of money. It's oil money. They got money.
Hmm.
Um, but if you're a smaller company, then you outsource. You get somebody who knows their stuff, uh, who can give you enough time to get the work done, and they're not necessarily on premise. But again, it's a huge company. Like they probably have a room full of people. They just didn't. I don't think they because not to keep slamming their team. I just don't think they practice for this eventuality, or else they would have had a plan that would have gotten them up quicker. So there's that.
That's
But
just weird that they wouldn't though, right? Like you know the business that you're in, and it's like casinos, right? They know how much they're going to lose if they're down for a day. You know what I mean?
yeah,
I figured it would be the same thing here. Like you have to know, and here's the thing: even before this happened to them 7 days ago now, 8 days ago now, whatever it was, um, or whatever it is, I think it was Friday the 7th, May 7th, I think. But you had to know that this was an eventuality. Like this is like number one. Like your pipeline shutting down is not what you want. Like how can you be that naive to believe that it's just not going to happen to us? You know what I mean?
right.
Even people that have the best security out there planned for it can happen to us. Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, but I'm sure there's going to be some because there's always that once you go back, you do the lessons learned. There's always something that seems so obvious. You'd be like, oh man, this is like that. That's that one thing right there. had we thought about this, it would have changed everything. So
Yeah, I have seen some after action reports where it's like, come on, how did this happen? You know what I
yeah,
mean?
how do we not think about this?
Yeah.
But again, not to slander team. Like I don't know how big they are. I don't know how well funded they were because who knows? That could have been the least funded department in the entire pipeline
Well,
of
if
no
that
pun
if
intended.
yeah, if that was the case, it's definitely past tense now. It was the least funded. It will not be anymore.
Yeah, yeah, because they could use that. That's a discount again. They could use that 5 mil to build a better team. Not to say that every company has $5 million just laying around, but I would assume when you're dealing all of the Southeast uh, gas and jet fuel and etc., you probably got a little bit of money where you could spend on cybersecurity. But I digress. Uh, So that pretty much wraps up for this episode where we talked about the executive order. Next episode, so there'll be a Ask Us SP in between. I don't know what the topic is yet. I'm still fielding questions. So if you have a question, please go ahead and shoot it to me because I might be desperate that day and I need a question real bad. But if not, I'll think of something else to talk about. There's so much stuff, right, in cybersecurity. But Thursday's episode, that will be a discussion about the ransomware being paid and a little bit more information, which I found in this article about what may have happened to cause the pipeline to be shut down. So with that being said, please check us out at the website, www.theothersideofthefirewall.com. Please visit our YouTube, watch the video. Please listen to the podcast, which is available on 6 different platforms. So it's going to be a platform where you listen to audio. We're probably on there. And then you hit me up personally where you can ask that question or bring up a topic for Ask a SSP at RY Security Guy. That's RY Security Guy. And I am on LinkedIn, Clubhouse, TikTok, Twitter, and TikTok. And LeVon?
And you can hit me up on Twitter at LeVon Maynard.
There it is. So stay safe, stay secure, and keep listening throughout the week. Peace.